Hello there, welcome to the Talking City podcast coming to you from the Manchester, joined as ever by Simon Bajkowski, and we're talking all about Manchester City's win at Nottingham Forest. And there are a lot of similarities to the Forest draw away last year, apart from the fact that City got that second goal and made it an easy finish. But it was a build-up where we were watching Arsenal. It was a nervy finish to that game. They put the pressure on, and City this time responded. Simon, it was not a straightforward afternoon, was it, at the City ground?
No, this is where I disagree with you. I thought it was completely different from last year. Last year, City were really good and drew the game, and this year they were really not good and won the game. Yeah, another kind of this is football, having gone out against Real Madrid when they probably should have won. They then beat Chelsea, having probably should have lost. Yeah, I think they will be very, very relieved to have walked out of Nottingham with 3 points because they certainly didn't defend like a team that wanted 3 points.
Yeah, I think Pep Guardiola is more on the side of you in that instance, in that he said to the journalist, he said, "You guys are going to write that we're brilliant because we won," but he said we were closer to drawing the game on Sunday than we were last year when we actually drew, because we played so much better last year, was his sort of train of thought. But in terms of the build-up, it was another day where Arsenal were playing first, and we know last year they were watching that Arsenal game in the dressing room. They were probably doing the same again in that North London derby, and then they come out and we get to the City ground. There's no Foden, and he's been playing so well, and there's no Diaz, so that means that Akanji and Ake have got to continue. And I mean, they've been doing very well, and they played well again. But you want your better players there, and it felt like even when City went ahead, it just felt like that equaliser was coming. My memory of last year is that yes, City dominated, but as they kept missing chances, the likelihood of a Forest equaliser was increasing. It was a different game. I'll give you that, because City were, yes, missing chances, but Forest were missing some glorious chances as well. And it would have been a lot fairer, I think, had Forest got a goal this time. But as happened, they didn't, and Guardiola made the changes. But why would you say that City struggled after that goal? Because they scored on the 20th minute, scored the second around the 70th minute. That intervening period was really tricky, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it the? I
Was
thought
it
it was
might
much
have been
later. The
30th
first
actually?
goal. It was the 32nd. Yeah. Um,
As I said it, I was like, no, that's wrong, completely wrong.
yeah. Yeah, Nottingham Forest were just very good, and City weren't at the races defensively. There was an issue with the pitch, whereby it was dry, it hadn't been watered, which kind of affected the way City play. They like to zip the ball about, and there were a few kind of mistimed challenges and passes and things like that. Walker was just having an off day. Ederson had a really off day, and sort of ended the first half injured and going off. But again, that shouldn't kind of excuse him for the fact that he was absolutely terrible while he was on the pitch and kind of nearly gifted Forest a couple of goals. Yeah, Forest just, I mean, they've got like pacey attackers that cause any team problems, but cause particular problems um, to City, and especially when Walker was just kind of flying into challenges and sort of trying to win Hollywood tackles that just weren't on, that were just kind of leaving gaping holes behind him for Forest to exploit. And yeah, City kind of have Chris Wood to thank for missing at least 2 chances that he should have stuck away.
Hmm.
Nico Williams made a Ederson save one and kind of could have had one as early as like inside 20 seconds. But yeah, sort of Chris Wood had very, very good chances and didn't take them. And then Erling Haaland came off the bench and only needed one to make the game safe. So, that is the difference. City brought on a League Two striker and won the game.
No comment. Well, apparently he's a championship striker now, so
How is he?
He's been upgraded in the eyes of Roy Keane. But yeah, I agree with you on Walker. There was 3 or 4 times where he just tried to get to the ball first, and Forest just let it run past and got the space. And I think Guardiola at one point had to just call him over and say, just calm down. It was more a tactical conversation, but I imagine part of that conversation was very much stop flying into tackles when you are on the right side of your defender and you have the pace. And there was a similar conversation with Gvardiol as well. Even after he'd scored, he went up for a header.
He ended up centre forward, didn't he?
Yeah, and he went up for that chance, completely missed the header. Forrest go and break on the other side and force a save from Ederson, and Guardiola just turned around and said, "What is he doing?"
Yeah, yeah.
And I think both of those fullbacks just, I mean, Guardiola himself has said, Guardiola said he didn't really know what he was meant to do, whether he was going forward, backwards. His role changed about 3 times in the first half, and he said he was lost, which is quite a interesting thing. You don't normally hear a player say that. I'm not sure Guardiola will be too pleased with his defender saying that in on Sky Sports, but it sort of sums up why City were just not 100% in that first half if they were trying different things. And it's no surprise that at half time he takes off Doku because he wasn't making any passes was the reason. He wanted Kovacic to slow things down and get his foot on the ball, which he did eventually. He goes a bit narrower by taking Doku and then Grealish off. It was basically a 4-2-2-2 formation, if you like.
Yeah, I felt sorry for Doku. As a player on the right side of the team, you want your right back to bring you the ball and move towards you and not sort of hurtle towards you without the ball as it goes behind you into the Forest, into your own half, and you've got to spend time chasing back. So he didn't really get much. City went through Grealish a lot on the left because they could keep the ball better that way. And yeah, like I've got to talk about Ederson because like what was he doing? What on earth was he doing? I think I mean he left in a sling. I think he's popped his shoulder out or something with going into a challenge with Bolly, I think it was. But like seconds before he's done that, there's been a corner and he's dropped the ball in his 6-yard box and Rodri's had to hook it away. And then he stayed on, and it's kind of like, well, if you're hurt enough that you have to go off, go off. And the first half injury time, he drops another ball that one of us could have caught, and he's lucky that the Forest centre back manages to miss the goal from a yard out. And I don't know if that was the reason where they were like, "Oh right, we've got to take Ederson off because he can't even catch a ball." But it's like, surely you know that, and if you're a keeper, like maybe don't leave it until you're presenting the opposition team with an open goal before you're like, yeah, I should probably come off, lads.
But he was flapping at crosses before
Yeah,
he got injured, wasn't he? And then
yeah,
he gets the
exactly, yeah.
treatment, he's holding his shoulder, and then after that he looks fine. But yeah, clearly he wasn't. And Guardiola says afterwards he doesn't think it looks good and he leaves in a sling. So yeah, it
Yeah,
just wasn't a great afternoon for him.
it kind of summed up the defense of being needless and brainless. And then in the second half, you kind of got a bit more structure. And Guardiola was like, right, we're just going through the middle. We're sort of forgetting
Yeah.
this. We're not giving Forest what they want. And we're not trying to play broad, expansive football on this pitch that isn't set up for it. So we're just going to go through the middle. We're going to be compact, and that's how we're going to do it. And they were, I'd say they were much better in the second half, but like Wood still misses a sitter at the start of it, and Forest still had chances kind of all the way through the half. So they were more in control of the game, but they still weren't really in control of it. Yeah, Forest can feel very hard done to, but they've got a lesson in, how you win Premier League games is by having the better players and the more clinical strikers. If you're Forest and you don't take those chances against City, then you have to expect that you're going to lose the game.
I'm just looking at stat from Opta, and Forest had more shots in both of their Premier League games versus City this season, and they're only the second team to outshoot a Pep side home and away in a top flight season since Real Madrid in 2009 and 2010, which probably points to the fact that, yeah, Forest had their chances and should really have put at least one of those sitters away. And who knows what happens if Wood scores that one in the first half. City would probably respond, but no, it did feel like they weren't quite there. And with the fact that Arsenal have won earlier in the day, you're thinking, are they going to hold on? And at one point, you were just waiting for that equaliser, just like happened the year before. And then Haaland comes on, and Guardiola said he can only play about half an hour because he'd been back from injury, and they used him well, and it completed the sort of in-game turnaround where they just, like you say, abandoned the width and went straight through the middle. And you got Kovacic who came on, takes the ball from the defender, turns, passes it to De Bruyne, takes it, turns on the halfway line, plays it to Haaland, and next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. And it was quite amazing for me how quickly it went from sheer panic and chaos to just calm for City after that goal. Like Forest just, I don't want to say gave up, but they stopped committing men forward. They probably realised that it would have been a 3 or 4 goal defeat had they started doing that and chasing a goal back. And the last 20 minutes were just routine, and that's kind of what City wanted. And I think Guardiola deserves quite a bit of praise for seeing how wrong it was going and just working out the simple way to solve it.
Yeah, and I think as well, what kind of goes under the radar a lot is how exhausting it is for opposition teams to play against City. Like it's really, really tough physically and mentally. Every time, every second of the game. And Forest put absolutely everything into breaking City down. And that, was shown in the chances they created, but also like Nico Williams has to go off in the first half because he has stretched everything to try and stop Jack Grealish putting a ball into the box, and he's managed it, but it's cost him his game. Second half, Murillo makes an outstanding tackle to stop kind of De Bruyne, Haaland, and Alvarez going through in a 3-on-1. But that pops his groin and he can't continue. It was like Forest were sort of not only were they getting towards the end of their energy reserves, but they were also losing men left, right, and centre because it took every last bit of energy they had. And a lot of the time when City play against teams you would expect them to beat, and they get a good fight against them, the question is always, can they keep this up over 90 minutes? Because it's really good, but can you keep it up? Because City will keep it up, and they've got the energy to do it because they're not chasing the ball as much. So I think City did kind of grind them down on that front, even though they weren't at their best.
I think it was after Brighton where Pep was asked if they were tired, or could have been after this game. All these press conferences are moulding into one, but yeah, he basically said we're tired when we don't have the ball, and we're not tired when we do have the ball, and that's sort of backs up that point quite nicely, I think, because City are better when they do have the ball and they can rest the legs as well as sort of tire the other team out. And I did see a quote from City's #1 fan, Federico Valverde, who said the Etihad game was the most tiring game he's ever played in. So he's gone from the worst atmosphere he's played in, and now the most tiring game he's played in, to the point where he didn't want to take a penalty because he was so exhausted. So again, shows that even when City are not winning, they're tiring out the defence, and it does help. Go on.
But that is the whole like Guardiola ethos. People moan about tiki taka or whatever, and Guardiola hates the term anyway. But he wants passing football because the ball can move quicker than people, and you're less tired if you're just hitting a football rather than chasing after a football. So, like, I know it was out of vogue for quite a few years, but there are many good reasons why possession football works, and one of them is that you are always less tired than your opponents if you're doing it right. So it's kind of, it is a stylistic choice, but it's also perfect from a fitness point of view and for endurance in games.
And it didn't escape Guardiola's notice that there was a shorter amount of turnaround between the two games this week than the Madrid and the Chelsea games as well. So he only made 2 changes, which we were a little bit shocked at, but maybe with Foden and Diaz both ill, that contributed to it. Just before we go to break, Kevin De Bruyne, 2 more assists. You've got a quite impressive stat about De Bruyne's assist this season.
It's ludicrous. Like the Real Madrid stat for Forest is ludicrous, but for De Bruyne now has more assists in all competitions than any other Premier League player, which I just can't get my head round. He's got 15 assists in 21 appearances, and some of those will be off the bench. Like he got one against Huddersfield in the FA Cup, didn't he, when he just came back? And then one against Newcastle in the league shortly afterwards. But like, you know, I think Ollie Watkins has got the most in the Premier League. And you could say, oh, well, right, this is all comps. But like Aston Villa have played Europa League. So Watkins has had the chance to add to his tally. City went out the first round of the Carabao Cup, so it's not like De Bruyne has had time there. I mean, he's filled his boots in the FA Cup with Luton, but like it's just insane. And you know, you look at games like yesterday, and it's two excellent deliveries from De Bruyne, and that partnership with Haaland again. You know, found each other inside 10 minutes of Haaland coming on, bang, 2-0, game over. It's pretty priceless.
I think just that sight of De Bruyne turning and oh, my light's gone off again. This happened last time, didn't it? De Bruyne turning and feeding Haaland, like you say, we saw it at Luton quite a lot, but it reminded me a little bit of Haaland's first Premier League goal at West Ham. It's such a nice looking goal, but if it was so simple, he'd be doing it every week, or you would be seeing it all the time in the Premier League. It does take a lot of skill for those two to be on the same wavelength, and we can talk about, is Foden better at number 10, or is City's record without Haaland better? You want those two players in your team, and when City have 5 games left to try and win a double, you would expect that if those two are fit, they're both going to start. And I would also say that I hadn't been too impressed with City's corners and set pieces in recent games, but that corner was very, very good for Guardiola and a very good header. So De Bruyne proving us wrong again. We'll leave it there for the first half, and we'll be back after a short break to talk about the title race, which continues to keep going until the last. Hi there, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. Pep Guardiola thinks that City need to win every single game. He doesn't see Arsenal dropping points, and if you were looking at Arsenal's fixtures, you might have earmarked a North London derby away at Spurs as a potential for dropping points, but they looked very good, especially in the first half. Almost threw it away, but they did hold on. So we expect Arsenal to continue. Liverpool dropped away again. They're sure, Guardiola keeps saying, "Oh, anything can happen," but on Thursday he said City can lose 2 games in a row like Liverpool, and then he was like, City can lose 3 games in a row, and they're running out of those games in a row to lose, and it seems to be imploding a little bit for Liverpool, and they're falling away. We can't call it a 3-horse race anymore, can we?
No, City and Arsenal ruining the 3-horse race. It's I think I'm just trying to find the table, but yeah, it would be kind of impossible for Liverpool to. I mean, not impossible, but yeah, for Liverpool to win their remaining games, which is a stretch given the recent form. But then, yeah, City'd have to lose. City would have to only get 4 points from the last 4 games. So, yeah, I think it's a 2-horse race, and yeah, I sort of backed Liverpool to put up more of a challenge than Arsenal, and I think Arsenal are gonna do it. They've proven me wrong, so fair play to Arsenal, who looked. I mean, they didn't look good against Tottenham, but they scored. They took the chance. It was a bit like City at Forest, and kind of a bit less galling for City than it was last year, because sort of they were twice behind against Aston Villa and then scored the winner in injury time, and it kind of felt like they'd won when they could have lost, whereas, they were 3-0 up against Tottenham. All right, they only ended up winning 3-2, but it was, it it didn't feel like, oh, they've got away with one there, or they've there was ever any time when you were expecting them to drop points. So yeah, very good. And I mean, Bournemouth at home for Arsenal, then Manchester United away, and then Everton at home. It's hard not to see it going to the final week with so few games remaining and such such form from both teams. Like another really high quality title race.
Yeah, I think you've got to agree with Guardiola when he says that he, they have to sort of prepare on the understanding that Arsenal will win all the games. We were working out the earliest City could win the title, and there's a lot of ifs. And if Arsenal only take a point against Bournemouth and Man United, and City win both of their next two games, City could be crowned champions. But that requires, like you say, Arsenal to not beat Bournemouth at home. Bournemouth are playing quite well, but going to Arsenal is a different game altogether, and it would also mean Man United have to look anything like a professional football team, which is quite a difficult ask at times. But then there's a chance where if City don't beat Tottenham or lose points, then Tottenham could hand Arsenal the title. So there's a couple of intriguing side plots, side stories in this in the title race, and we did say last week, I think, that Tottenham are going to potentially have a say in the title. They've got both City and Arsenal. Didn't quite help City out, so City will have to go there and break their duck in the Premier League and win there. But I think that's what the City players have said. Was it Haaland who said that if you look at Arsenal's results, you'll go crazy? I think that's a bit of a sort of an interesting way of saying it, but the point remains that if you focus on the other team, you're not going to focus on yourselves, and that's how City have got to this point. Is it 19 games unbeaten now? City are in the league. I think I saw that number, and
Ooh, yeah,
it is
something like
quite
that. Yeah,
impressive.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
just look and you think four left. Just they've got two big weeks now where they've not got a midweek game. That could be very important.
Yeah, spoke to Nathan Ake after the game, and he sort of couldn't hide his delight at the extra rest time that they're going to get. It's 4 games in 3 weeks, and I think is it was last season. I think they had sort of one league game left or something like that, and Haaland's on the training pitch going like, "No, it's not one final, it's three. We've got the FA Cup, we've got the Champions League, it's 3 finals." So now they've got the FA Cup final as well. They will be saying 5 finals. We've got to win 5 finals, and we make history, win a double. This team, very, very good at first at setting themselves up for success, and then at getting over the line. And yeah, it's in their hands, and it was in their hands before yesterday, and it is in their hands now. And there's every chance that they could drop points in their remaining 4 matches, but you don't really see it. And kind of, yeah, especially with a full week now and then Wolves at home, like that, it's almost got kind of Leicester at home vibes with Vincent Kompany's winner. But if they can get past Wolves, then it's another week down, and then you've got 2 London games in 4 days, Fulham away and Tottenham away. And yeah, and then West Ham at home. So, sort of long felt that the longer City can keep this unbeaten and winning run going, then the more chance there is that Arsenal might drop points. And even if Arsenal do drop points against United, and there's a chance of sort of City only needing 4 points from the final week, that kind of takes the pressure off Spurs a bit. And
I just
also,
don't think City. I think it helps City to know they have to win.
yeah,
I, th-
yeah,
I think at Forest, like knowing that they had to win, helped them in the second half because they were arguing when they went off, and Guardiola wasn't happy at half time. And we've seen Liverpool arguing in a different way, but I think that knowing that they had to just win and do whatever it took to do that probably helped focus their minds and say, right, forget about whatever happened in the first half. What do we need to do to look forward?
Yeah, and I think everyone at City would like to play down the impact that experience can have in this title race, but you just can't, like, at this stage of the season, to have been there and done it. And even like the treble last season, City weren't great against United in the FA Cup final. They were even worse against Inter in the Champions League final, but they won and they scrapped it and they found a way to win. And I think Guardiola probably enjoyed it more than he would have done if they'd won both games 5-0, because it showed like the maturity, the mentality, the understanding of these players to be able to get over the line. And some of them have gone and have been missed this season, but you've also got new people stepping up. And remember speaking to Kyle Walker towards the start of the season about coming back from winning the treble and how you sort of maintain that mentality. And he was like, I'm motivated to win the Premier League. I've won whatever he's won, 5 Premier League titles. I'm motivated to win a sixth so that Josko Guardiola can win a first, because he's come into this dressing room and I want him to
Hmm.
experience that feeling. You look at Guardiola now, like scoring worldies against Madrid and then, 2 in the Premier League, really important goals. Um, he's stepping up at the right time, and Kovacic is sort of becoming a useful cog in the midfield again. So City have just got this immense squad who know how to turn it on when it matters. And it might be that they fall short, and if they don't win the league, they'll still have had a phenomenal season. But if they do go on to win the league, boy oh boy, like we're talking about all-time greats in the history of the competition and in English football.
Yeah, because everyone says about Sir Alex Ferguson that it was his ability to regenerate a team, and I think it might only be 4 or 5 players, but like you say, to get Kovacic into a place where he he wasn't, you couldn't see where he fit in, particularly at the start of the season. You knew there was a good player there, but he's now being the man who's brought on to calm things down and slow things down. And if Guardiola wants more control, he plays Kovacic. If he wants a bit more attack, he brings on Doku, for example, or he can move Bernardo Silva around. And Guardiola's, I I would imagine, if I looked at the stats, he's played more games at left back than Ake, and started off a bit shaky, and now is very, I want to say very reliable. And then remember that he was getting lost at Forest up and down the pitch, but he has been a very, very good left back this season for City, who continue to play without a left back. And yeah, I think, like you say, with experience, the fact that Guardiola, whenever he can, is giving his players 2 or 3 days off, even if it's at the expense of training, shows how he's learned that they just need rest. It's not about getting minutes on the training pitch. They know what they have to do. It's about
Yeah.
go away, don't talk to us, don't talk to your teammates, go and see what, just have some downtime. And I think that is something that we're seeing a little bit more of this season. He's always been keen to give them time off, hasn't he? But it feels like whenever the opportunity arises, that's what he's doing this season.
Yeah, and also, as much as we say City were bad against Forest, and should they have been bad because Forest are much lower in the table? Like City were at Brighton on Thursday night, flying back in the middle of the night to arrive home Friday morning, and like there's no time to prepare a game for Sunday. Forest have had. Did they play? They play Monday, Forest, or
Um, well, it was the Everton game where they were complaining about the referee, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. So they've had that game, and they've been on tilt ever since because they've been so annoyed at the VAR decisions. And they've also had much longer to prepare. And they're in a relegation battle. They desperately don't want to be caught by Luton or Burnley. So, like, the Forest, and they've sort of created the best conditions for them, they think, by making the pitch dry. So that there's kind of everything is going in Forest's favour that can go in their favour, and City have still gone there and won. Might not have been the best performance, but they've gone there and won, and that is all that matters at the end of the season. When the titles are decided.
And that fact isn't lost on City players and the staff, is it? That they're playing teams who have much longer to prepare of how to beat them. it's mentioned quite a few times, and then City still just turn up and often win. As we know, they've not lost since that Aston Villa game. We'll be back after a short break now, and we'll discuss the return of Haaland and what City's best team looks like in the final 5 games of the season. Hi there, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. We've got Erling Haaland back from injury, Kevin De Bruyne getting assists left, right and centre and important goals. It was another game where it seems like De Bruyne and Foden most of the time play better without the other one. There's probably 4 or 5 occasions where one's dropped out and the other one's played well. Obviously against Brighton, they both played very well. Bernardo Silva, I think, is playing brilliantly at the moment in a number of positions, and he's being moved around to accommodate for others, and he's still doing whatever job Guardiola asks of him. Alvarez probably is the man to drop out, but he's playing well. Grealish is showing how important he is when it comes to keeping the ball. When City are preparing these last 5 games, assuming everyone is fit, how would you see that front line, Simon? Because we know that Haaland will start because Guardiola has made clear that you don't rest a player like that unless it's for fitness reasons. De Bruyne is a number 10. We think Foden's better at 10 than wide, but can come inside. What do you think the best way of getting all these players to perform at the best to win City the title?
I think the best players are pretty simple. You've got Rodri, Foden, De Bruyne, Bernardo, Grealish, and Haaland. And, whether you play De Bruyne and Foden in the middle together with Bernardo out wide, or whether you play Bernardo in the middle with Foden out wide, I think it kind of depends on the situation and how things are going. Recently we've seen Foden and De Bruyne in the middle. It's not really worked. Foden switched with Bernardo and it's worked a lot better. And we've also seen Foden out wide with Bernardo and De Bruyne in the middle, and it's not really worked. And Foden's moved inside, and it's been a lot better. So I think it's fairly set, with respect to Doku and Alvarez and Kovacic, and sort of the players below them. For me, I'd kind of set and forget those players and just focus on sort of where exactly they're going to be to get the best out of beating a particular opponent. But I think there are more questions kind of at the back with who you play, because John Stones is, I think, 1 in 5 he started Stones, and Diaz wasn't there yesterday. Does he come back in, and does Walker keep playing? They sort of seem to have found a bit of success with kind of pushing Walker and Guardiola up. But there's a lot of debate about the centre backs, and obviously Ederson injured, but even so, Ortega's putting up a good case to start as well. So there's probably more places up for grabs in defence than I'd say there are in kind of the front 6.
Yeah, well, I said at the beginning of the podcast that Ake and Akanji played well, and then we went and talked about how sort of shoddy the back line was. But Akanji started a lot of big games, and you can put it down to other players being injured. But for example, at Liverpool, he started ahead of Diaz, and we asked him afterwards, like, were you surprised? And he looked a bit shocked at the question. He was like, no, he backs himself. And since he said that, I've been very impressed with how he's been playing. And at what point do we consider Akanji a first choice defender? Because I mean, he started the Champions League final. He's been very consistent over the last 2 seasons, and I think we consider Stones and Diaz as the best pairing and Walker as the top right back. But Akanji's always there, and especially this season, if you've got Stones whose fitness might be in question because, like you say, he's just not starting games at the moment. Walker is playing well. He got 2 assists at Brighton, but then was a bit not as good against Forest, to put it politely. I would say Akanji's in the frame to be first choice and then move players around him personally.
I think Akanji's in the top 3 players for the season, in which case, he's the number 1 defender. I'd say Akanji, Rodri, and Foden, and maybe Akanji is probably third in that, but he's still better than 20 others. Yeah, he's been really, really good. And yesterday, like there was a lot of um Pep choosing Akanji to pass on messages to everyone and to
Yeah.
be kind of the tactical guy. And I think it is a shame for Akanji that we see him predominantly as not John Stones. He's played a lot in the Stones role, and he's not
Hmm.
quite good at it as Stones is, and he doesn't make it look as effortless, and he's more easily beaten, and he finds it more difficult to get back. And, yeah, and so that kind of colours a lot of the thinking around Akanji, I think, but, like, he's also been very good in the Stones role, that doesn't get as much attention as when he's kind of being bypassed, and defensively, he's been superb again this season. 14 million pounds for 2 years and counting of that level of performance. It's just astonishing. I still can't comprehend the level of performances he's produced over such a long time. I don't think Dortmund can comprehend it. I don't think kind of anyone can, because no one was interested in him last summer
No,
or Leicester. And like,
it was out of the blue, and people saying, "Oh, the City need another defender."
yeah, yeah. Um, they wouldn't have won the treble without him, and they wouldn't be where they are this season without him. I think Ake's been kind of as good as him probably, but Akanji's played 500 more minutes than Ake, so you probably have to shade it into if you're looking at contributions. So yeah, Akanji starts. The question is whether it's centre back or right back, but I don't think there's a question over his place in the team.
Which in turn means that one of Walker and Stones and Diaz has to drop out. But that's the nature of the City squad, and we've seen examples before where established players have not been uh, given starts when they were previously because that's the way that the season's gone. And we've also seen that when players are injured, Guardiola wants the other players to come in. And I think with the Stones role, yeah, I do agree that he doesn't look as natural when he goes into midfield. But had John Stones not done that and been as good as he is, and Akanji was the first one to do it, we'd all be raving about how effective he was.
Yeah,
Um, and I can't remember the game, but there was an example recently where both of them were playing, and it was Akanji asked to go in midfield and do that role next to Rodri, and Stones was back. Stones was the final defender. So
yeah. I
Guardiola
think it was
made the
Chelsea
choice of the
FA
two
Cup
of them.
game. Yeah,
Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah. So Guardiola clearly rates what he does there. It might not look as flowing as when Stones does it, but he's clearly doing a job there. And yeah, when I asked him, was he surprised to start? I sort of regret that question a little bit now because in hindsight, like you say, there's not been any defender better than him this season. So
no, but it's also easy to get carried away by circumstances and price tags, and
mhm.
I feel like Guardiola's had a bit of an easy ride at times this season to say that he cost 78 million. And in the same way as sort of, Akanji, because he was such like a bargain buy last minute last season, it's sort of like, oh well, you're gonna start your 78 million pound player ahead of him and your 47 million pound player ahead of him and your 64 million pound player ahead of him. But it's the Guardiola way is not caring about those price tags, and like Akanji has done more than enough to start. Even like the Champions League final, huge to leave Kyle Walker out after he'd sort of fought his way back into the team, but Guardiola couldn't leave Akanji out. Um, and yeah, he's just one of Guardiola's most trusted players. We were talking about sort of training, um, and the lack of times that he get. Like Guardiola's just been amazed at how quickly Akanji's picked everything up and picked up being able to play in multiple positions and different roles, and it's exactly what's asked of him, and a different kind of fullback role, and he's just able to do it. He's just super intelligent, and it shows in him being picked for so many games.
But I think he said recently that he doesn't have a position. He's just a defender. because he's played at left back and right back, and he's sometimes in midfield and sometimes in a back four, in a back three. And I think that versatility is what Pep looks for. And to be fair, Pep doesn't use many players in a set position. You can only really count maybe Walker, Rodri, and Haaland as having a set role. The rest are fairly flexible. So I think Akanji is very good in that. And if there was an unsung hero award for the season, if he's not in your top two for player of the season, he'd probably win something along the lines of that. So we'll look forward, and you would expect if Diaz is early, if Stones we're not sure on his fitness, the week off might help, but you would look probably that Akanji is one of the first names on the team sheet against Wolves, and we'll be back on Friday to preview that, and we'll work out some other things to talk about because we don't want to just repeat ourselves on the title race. But I wasn't expecting to talk as much about Akanji there, but I think
I know it was
I think he deserves it because he is that kind of player who goes under the radar, but has been arguably the most consistent all season.
Yeah, and it's kind of been. I feel like they were underrated last season, both Akanji and Ake,
Yeah,
and they have been City's best defenders this season, and Foden has been the best midfielder. And I'd still say Haaland's been the best forward, but Alvarez carried the team with Foden for quite a bit, while Haaland was injured, and also filled in for De Bruyne. So although there haven't been sort of major changes to the team in terms of sort of incoming signings, it has been a different flavour to City this season because the sort of the most prominent players, Rodri aside, have not been the ones that were starring last season.
but it's inevitable that City are going to go to the title and win everything again, isn't it? It's all nailed
Well,
on.
yeah. It just depends who's which players stand out for them. Yeah.
We'll be back on Friday. Thank you for listening. Give us a like and a follow, and leave a comment if you can. We're where you would expect your podcast to be. We will be there, and on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Yep, join us on Friday and we'll preview the game against Wolves.